Listen, I'm on the record in saying that the NFC North is no, scratch that it is the best division in football, which means that the X factors in this division are really going to make a difference. You have the gritty Detroit Lions with all the offensive weapons that any team could want, from Gibbs to Montgomery to Amon-Ra St. Brown to Jameis. You get the point. The Vikings, who have a ton of talent and would like to take the next step in 2025 with JJ McCarthy at the helm. The Packers, looking to take that next level leap and once again reclaim the North behind quarterback Jordan Love. And then there's the young and exciting Bears with Caleb Williams, Ben Johnson, and that crew who are looking to make that jump. And in a division that is no doubt in my mind going to be a bloodbath, these X factors in this video may be more important than any video we do in the entire series. The Lions were one of the more impressive teams in 2024. In the preseason, I thought that they were going to go to the Super Bowl. And hell, if you're a Lions fan and you're going to argue to me that if the defense was healthy, 2024 was your year, as an Eagles fan, I'll disagree. But as an NFL fan, I'll hear you out on that case. Either way, as you head into 2025, you hope that it is your season again, because the Super Bowl window is certainly wide open. But that doesn't go without question marks, and it doesn't go without roles that now need to be filled in terms of offensive and defensive coordinator, and guys that need to step up. The X factors were hard to pick. My honorable mentions: Terrion Arnold, Marcus Davenport. Terrion Arnold is likely going to have to step up and be the cornerback one for this team. I see DJ Reed as more of a 2. Terrion Arnold, kind of a penalized guy, but was a first-round draft pick for a reason. We'll see if he could make that leap. And Marcus Davenport, listen, Aiden Hutchinson needs some help on the other side of the edge. I can't believe that the Lions let Zadarius Smith walk, but is what it is. It's time for Davenport to step up. But my X factor for this team is none other than Graham Glasgow / Tate Ratledge. Listen, I don't know who the Lions center is going to be, but whoever its job is to replace Frank Ragnow, that is the X factor of this team, because there's still no doubt a top 10 offense in football. But if they're going to be the #1 offense in football after losing their all-pro level center, who was huge in the pass game, of course, but even more massive in their run game, then one of these two guys in Glasgow or Ratledge is going to have to step up for this team in 2025. Like I mentioned, Ragnow was one of, if not the best run blocking center in all of football. And I get it. You got a ton of talent in that backfield with Gibbs and Montgomery, but they got to have somewhere to go. And maybe nobody in the game was better than Glasgow at giving them spots to go. Ratledge and or Glasgow are going to have to work together to fill this void. And maybe both of these guys is correct as the X factor, because one of them is going to be center and one of them is going to be guard. And to replace Glasgow's production, you're probably going to need both to be firing in all cylinders. And not for nothing, but Jared Goff, not the most mobile quarterback in the NFL at this point in time. He needs protection, and he needs protection from both the outside and that interior line as well. This is a different Detroit Lions offensive line now that Frank Ragnow is gone. Is it a bad one? That's not necessarily the case, but do these guys have to absolutely step up? No doubt about it. And if I'm keeping it 100, truthfully, I don't know what to expect from this Detroit Lions offensive line. On one level, I'm skeptical that you can replace an all-pro center just like that with draft picks and guys who originally played guard. It just doesn't feel realistic to me. But on the other hand, how can we deny what the Detroit Lions have done over the past few years, ever since Dan Campbell has gotten there? There has been, of course, just a turnaround in terms of wins, and they've brought in additional talent, but there is a grittiness, there is a work ethic to this team that I believe head coach Dan Campbell instills. So if there is any team built for roster turnover and coordinator turnover, is it not this Detroit Lions squad? Is it not Tate Ratledge and Graham Glasgow having two solid options to replace Frank Ragnow? Could it have been a better option than that? Obviously, you wouldn't have liked him to retire, but it's what happened. And now these guys could determine your season. The Vikings are one of the more polarizing teams in all of the NFL, and I've seen some wild projections from them, from missing the playoffs to getting to the Super Bowl. I believe FanDuel's got their win total set at 8.5 or 9.5 right now. Either way, it's in the single digits, which I don't completely agree with, Vikings fans. I think you're better than that, but I do think that that means there are some X-Factor players that are going to determine your season. My honorable mentions are Dallas Turner and Isaiah Rodgers on this defense. Dallas Turner, You drafted him last year. Can he take that next step and become an elite edge rusher? Can you have two elite edge rushers in him and Jonathan Grenard? We shall see. And Isaiah Rodgers, you brought him in to be cornerback too. I know a lot about him being a Philadelphia Eagles fan, and I think he's a really solid piece. I would have felt very comfortable with him being our cornerback too last year, and he was over many stretches with Darius Slay getting hurt. So Vikings fans who weren't tapped into every Eagles game, let me tell you, you got a good one in Rodgers. He could play the position. But my X factor, how could it be anybody other than JJ McCarthy for this team? And listen, I get it. Did I pick the boring choice in JJ McCarthy for this video? Did I pick the chalk easy choice? Yeah, I did. But there's nobody else that we could have talked about for this Vikings team. The 2024 first round draft pick missed all of last year with a torn ACL, and now he finds himself stepping into perhaps a higher pressure situation than he thought he was going to be in. The Minnesota Vikings are no slouch. This team won 14 games last year with Sam Darnold, and Darnold put up a Pro Bowl season. You're following a really good year from both the team and the quarterback position that now the expectation is for you to live up to. And you have the pieces to do it. Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, Aaron Jones, Jalen Naylor, and a top 10 offensive line in football. Everything is there for JJ McCarthy to produce. And oh yeah, did I mention the coach of the year, Kevin O'Connell, calling plays? If there is not a dream, if this isn't the dream situation for an NFL quarterback, I don't know what the hell is. And listen, Vikings fans, if JJ McCarthy is a smack hit and he produces to the level that, let's just say, Bo Nix did last year, the Super Bowl window is freaking open in Minnesota. If he is not that guy though, it's going to feel like a wasted year of this core talent. You have a top 10 defense, a top 10 offensive group outside of the quarterback position. It's just that big fucking question mark at the most important position in the sport. And while I'm a believer in JJ McCarthy, we can't just move past the outcome of we don't know what it's going to be. JJ McCarthy, I said a couple of videos ago that Travis Hunter may be the biggest X factor in all of football. But in terms of impactful for this season, I think it's JJ McCarthy, man. Because again, his level of play really could take the Minnesota Vikings all the way up to hoisting a Lombardi in Santa Clara at Super Bowl 60, but all the way down to finishing fourth in this bloodbath of a division. Truthfully, JJ McCarthy could probably get by just being a distributor, top 16 QB in football, and you guys got double-digit wins and back into the playoffs. But the range of outcomes for your team rely solely on this guy's play. Let's be honest about the Green Bay Packers last year. They didn't meet expectations. You could say that they stayed the same, but I think that they took a step back. They didn't win a playoff game, and there were a lot of people that thought the Packers were on a really solid trajectory after their 2023 campaign and that they were going to potentially go to the Super Bowl. Peter Schrager predicted it, so it's not like people that don't know what they're talking about were talking up the Packers for no reason. This is a team that had high expectations and didn't deliver. Who and what can they do in 2025 to make sure that that turns around? My honorable mentions are cornerback Nate Hobbs and defensive end Lucas Van Ness. Nate Hobbs is the guy that the Packers entrusted their cornerback one role to. They've cut Jair Alexander, they gave Hobbs a big deal, and now it's time to see if he can hold it down for this defense, because again, this is a team that's looking to contend. They don't have time for guys to get comfortable in the system. It is Nate Hobbs, you better produce year one. And Lucas Van Ness, you talk about a guy who's had a couple of years to get, his spot in this system. But this team needs a strong edge rusher. You're in a division with Montez Sweat, with, Grenard, with Aiden Hutchinson. Like, this is a loaded defensive end division where they're getting after your quarterback. You have to be able to get after theirs, especially when you consider that two of the three quarterbacks in this division are not very mobile. But my X factor for this Green Bay Packers team is none other than their first round pick, wide receiver Matthew Golden. And to be quite blunt about the Green Bay Packers offense, it needs to be more explosive in 2025 than it was in 2024. Again, especially when you're in a division with explosive weapons, Justin Jefferson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs, DJ Moore. The list goes on. It is essential that Green Bay approves in this critical area. They have to be able to get big plays. They have to be able to get game-changing plays from their offense, and they need an explosive weapon, and that is exactly what Matthew Golden is built to be. Golden was perhaps the most explosive wide receiver in the 2025 draft class, a guy out of Texas who can not only take the top off of defenses, but is a very solid route runner, which led to him having a lot of success last year for the Longhorns. And listen, I'll say it, I think that that wide receiver room is open enough in Green Bay that Matthew Golden can walk in there and become the team's #1 option by the end of September. That's the potential that he has, and that's kind of where this wide receiver room is at. And don't get me wrong, is it a ways to go to compete with Jaden Reed and Romeo Doubs, who are solid pieces? Absolutely. But Golden has the potential, and he'll have the opportunity. Christian Watson's ACL injury opens up a lot of playing time for Matthew Golden, as he is now the take the top off wide receiver for the Green Bay Packers already. And if he's a hit, of course the offense could be successful this year, but that could also mean that Jordan Love takes that next leap. He's a fringe top 10 guy right now. But if the Packers win a ton of games this year, Jordan Love could throw for 4,000 plus yards, 30 touchdowns, and lead this team to win this division. That's the leap that would cement Jordan Love as a top 10 quarterback in the NFL and cement the Green Bay Packers as real threats and real contenders. Matthew Golden could be the missing piece for this Packers team. And then we get to the Chicago Bears, who very much so like the Minnesota Vikings, I have heard a plethora of projections for this team. Some have them finishing below 500, some have them back into an NFC Championship game. Either way, all that I know is it's more than one guy that's going to be an X factor for this team. So it was really hard to narrow down this list. But my honorable mentions, defensive tackle Grady Jarrett and tight end Colston Loveland. I think Grady Jarrett's going to need to be massive for this team in the run game, and as well getting an interior pressure. Montez Sweat obviously is the pressure guy, the edge rusher on this team. But Grady Jarrett, a veteran, could come in and have a really solid year. And Colston Loveland as this team's potential primary tight end. He's a vertical threat. He's very similar to Sam Laporta, who Ben Johnson drafted and then coached to being one of the better tight ends in football. You could see some real high level from Loveland in year one. But my X factor is another pass catcher. It is wide receiver Rome Odunze. And listen, there's a lot of expectations and a lot of question marks running around the 2025 Bears offense. What kind of scheme and what plays will Ben Johnson call? How good is Caleb Williams going to be in year two? What does the run game look like with DeAndre Swift, Roshan Johnson? They didn't draft a guy. Is DJ Moore going to be that guy still? Did the rookies that they drafted in Luther Burden and Colston Loveland, are they going to be ready to compete and pan out? But I think the biggest question mark and the biggest X factor and the biggest game changer for this Bears offense could be second-year wide receiver Rome Odunze. The Bears drafted Rome Odunze 9th overall in last year's draft for his elite route running, ability to high point the ball, and his catching skills. Hell, you don't get a comp of DeAndre Hopkins in the NFL draft for nothing, and you don't get picked 9th overall for your team not to think that you're ready to produce. And listen, last year, Rome had a disappointing year. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. 700 yards and 3 touchdowns. Not what the team wanted from their top 10 pick, especially when you saw guys like Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr. and Ladd McConkey really pop off. That is what the Bears wanted Rome Odunze to be. But I think similar to Caleb Williams, we could potentially give Rome a pass for the Matt Eberflus, Shane Waldron, and everything that was going on there. As much as it affected Caleb Williams, it also affected Rome Odunze. But as much as we're saying that Caleb, now that you got all these weapons and Ben Johnson calling the plays, it's time to show up, the same could be said for Rome Odunze. Now that you've got Ben Johnson and a bunch of weapons around you and likely improved Caleb Williams, it is time for you to also show up. And Rome Odunze, I think, has top 20 ceiling as a wide receiver this year. A second-year breakout could not only be great for him and great for Caleb, but it could mean that the Bears vault themselves into being a top 10 offense in football and back into the playoffs. But again, as always, guys, these are just my thoughts. Be sure to leave yours in the comment section down below. Who are your NFC North X Factors? If you love the NFL and you're not yet subscribed to this channel, hit that button. I'll catch you next time. Peace.